Hi everyone, Al the Psych here. Got a video for you today for informational purposes only on happiness and hedonistic adaptation. And I've used a lot of sources, Myths of Happiness by, let's see if I can say her name, Sonia Lubomirsky. That's from 2013. The Happiness Hypothesis, that's Jonathan Haidt from 2006, I think. Um, let's see. Hedonistic Adaptation to Positive and Negative Experiences. That's again by Lubomirsky. That's 2010, and other sources that I've used. Okay, so let's just jump into it. So the capacity to adapt also means we adapt to rewarding life changes. So that's hedonistic adaptation, which can be an obstacle to our happiness. Okay, so hedonistic adaptation is the psychological process by which people become accustomed to a positive or a negative stimulus such that the emotional effects of that stimulus are reduced over time. And okay, that's a little wordy. It'll make sense when I go through the video. Okay. So now reportedly, happiness has a type of, or at least a partial set point or default. Okay. So for example, if you buy a new car or you win the lotto, you may feel more happy. So it's kind of amped up a little bit, but eventually your happiness defaults to your original, your typical level of happiness. And this also works with with negatives on happiness, where it can default up after a negative event. Like if you have a new car, when you first get it, you're kind of jazzed and like what I would do. And I don't buy a lot of new cars, but when I did buy a new car, I'd maybe park it, far away in the parking lot so nobody would park near it and ding it and scratch it or anything like that. But eventually, it's kind of like, okay, it doesn't matter so much. It gets its first ding, and then it's like, okay, that's that level has kind of come back down. Now, some really important points about determinants of the chronic happiness level. So, if I'm understanding the research the way it's out there, this would probably be fairly accurate. The set point, what we have, the default, accounts for about 50% of the observed variance in well-being. In other words, it's about that innate set point is about 50% of what causes that happiness. Life circumstances, surprisingly, only account for about 10%, not a high number in my estimation. And then finally, intentional activity. This accounts for the remaining 40%. So in other words, we actually have a large percentage in which we can actually boost our level of happiness. The thing is that we have to have some strategy behind it, and we have to implement it. So the assumption of a fixed genetically determined set point, I'm reading this that I took almost word for word maybe. The assumption of a fixed genetically determined set point does not logically lead to the conclusion that well-being cannot be changed, as even the existence of the set point leaves much room for improvement. That was that 40% that I was just talking about. Okay, so it leaves room for improvement as well as for resilience. Yeah. So specifically, up to 40% of the individual differences in happiness appear to be determined by what people do. Okay, that's intentional efforts. So people can both preserve happiness and become substantially happier. Okay, good stuff here. Now, coping is one general label that you might use on how people can hasten adaptation to the negative domain. So something adverse has happened, your happiness level has dropped, and then you work on your coping skills to bring your happiness back up to its default point. Now, I'm not going to touch too much on that. What this video is about is more about more of the positives, the positive domain. Okay, so positive psychology has kind of become a big deal in the last couple of decades, and that plays a part in how you can, increase your happiness. So the positive activities that people can engage in that generate positive thoughts, positive emotions, positive events can slow down the hedonistic adaptation. Remember, we want to slow down that hedonistic adaptation to keep our level of happiness up, for those positive events. Okay. Now, pleasurable activities that provide partial and intermittent, rather than continuous, intermittent satisfaction are more likely to slow down the hedonistic adaptation. So let's say that I buy a new TV, and the TV is bigger and it has a more sophisticated sound system than my previous TV. So I might really initially enjoy the larger screen. This is like great, I'm watching the football game, and it's like those players are like almost in my room type of thing. And I like the way the sound fills the room, and that sort of thing. It's like pretty exciting. But in time, that new sensation kind of wears off, and you adapt to it. So it's like, a month later, it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's the TV. Oh yeah, it is. I guess it is bigger than the one I had before. Don't even remember it anymore. That sort of thing. That happens. There's like no more surprises. Okay, so now I've adapted to it. So there's things that we can do to reduce that hedonistic adaptation. In my mind, I'm just throwing this out there because in my video sometimes I throw in my perspective, whether it's research-based or not. Sometimes it's not. But in this case, it's not, as far as I know. But like with kids, I think sometimes they have a conglomeration of toys, and after a while they kind of get a little bored with all of them. Something that might be simple is to actually rotate the toys. You're putting certain toys in a box, removing them, wait a few weeks, and you can rotate them back in, take some others out, and it's like those old toys can become almost new again. Okay, so it's little strategies like that. So, activities that are most effective in reducing hedonistic adaptation are those that generate new and unexpected moments. Okay. So, like if I go to Disneyland once a year, I'm anticipating the excitement, and I go there, and it's like fresh and new, that sort of thing. But if I go to Disneyland, once a week, after a while, at least for most people, that excitement level is going to start to drop. The newness isn't there anymore, and so that happiness level is going to, just kind of degrade a little bit. So, money and happiness. Okay, so how money can make you happy. Spend money on experiences as opposed to objects. That seems to help. And then segregate the experiences, so not all at one time. It's a lot of times it's the anticipation of the activity provides almost as much excitement as the activity itself, and sometimes it can generate more depending on if the activity turns out to be not as exciting as anticipated. But if you can do that and you can do it in segments, you've always got something then to, anticipate, excitement, anticipate, and then actually to experience. So you do it in blocks, of time as opposed to one giant block. You kind of segregate those blocks. Um, you can spend money on need-satisfying activities, like just kind of developing. I want to maybe develop myself as a person, on growing, on investing in interpersonal connections, whatever. There's plenty of actual classes, courses that you can take that might be of interest to you. That you can kind of say would be growth, interpersonal growth types of experiences. So that's another way that your money can actually give you dividends in a sense. Spend on competence, like feeling capable or more expert. Want to get better at guitar, or get better at playing the piano. So you might want to take some lessons there. So that experience of improving can really bring that excitement level, that happiness level up. And just anything that's a need satisfying type of thing. I'm sure there's a lot of athletes out there who want to get better at whatever that new sport is, or they want to engage in the activity of running, and maybe want to work on their 5K time or something like that. So those activities are more likely to really kind of boost your level of happiness than, say, purchasing an item. At least to get that happiness level will kind of stick longer than will the happiness level associated with the purchase of an item. There's a lot of other information, about happiness. I'll probably do another video at some point in time about it and get to some of the other details out there. But I think this is a good place to start. So I'm hoping I gave you some good information. Tell me what you think. Go ahead and put some comments in. Again, for informational purposes only. I always like to say that. And see you next time.